Today, we see people consuming enormous amounts of brands, and they do it far more for the status than for the actual use or purpose. It's an epidemic of superficiality. The fundamental question is this: if no one could see what you bought, would you still buy it? If you were locked in a vault, entirely unobserved by the judgmental eyes of society, and no one could see your $1 million purse, would you still buy it? Because if the answer to that is a resounding no, then congratulations. You've just diagnosed yourself. You are buying it for all the wrong reasons. If you buy solely to show up your status, I am sorry to be the one to tell you, but you are an empty vessel. And honestly, could you be any more hollow? You are treating a chronic psychological condition, insecurity, with over-the-counter retail therapy. It's a placebo. I am not saying that you shouldn't buy things. I'm not a monk, and I don't expect you to be one either. If a luxury item brings you genuine, isolated joy, if looking at the stitching on a leather bag in an empty room cures your existential dread, go right ahead. But if this is something you are getting only to show off, please rethink your symptoms. Let's take a practical example. I really enjoy cars, but if I had unlimited money, I wouldn't have any wish to own a flashy, exotic sports car. Why? Because sitting in traffic in a Lamborghini is still just sitting in traffic. It doesn't magically make the guy honking at you in a Honda Civic disappear. It's just not a desire of mine. I would rather spend my money on experiences, on trips, rather than stuff. But wait, before we pat ourselves on the back for being so culturally evolved, even when we talk about trips, we need to administer a reality check. Ask yourself this: if you couldn't post the pictures of your trip on social media, would you still do it? If Instagram shut down tomorrow, would you still hike up that mountain at 5 a.m.? Or is your spiritual retreat to Bali really just a very expensive, highly orchestrated photo shoot for people you haven't spoken to since high school? We are essentially renting space in the minds of strangers and paying the rent with our credit cards. The German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer diagnosed this perfectly. He said, "We forfeit 3/4 of ourselves in order to be like other people." He understood that placing our value in the heads of other people is a terrible idea. Other people's heads are a wretched, messy place for your happiness to live. We are confusing the treatment with the cure. The ancient Greek philosopher Epicurus categorized human desires into 3 distinct buckets. 1. First, desires that are natural and necessary, like food, water, and shelter. You need these, or you die. Basic biology. 2. Second, desires that are natural but unnecessary, like a really expensive gourmet meal instead of just regular food. It's nice, but you'll survive without it. 3. And finally, the third bucket. Desires that are vain and empty. Wealth, fame, power, and yes, that designer logo on your shirt. Epicurus warned us about this third bucket. Vain desires have no natural limit. If you are thirsty, a glass of water cures you. But if you are thirsty for status, there is no cure. There is always someone with a bigger boat, a louder car, and a more expensive watch. It is a disease with no ceiling. You are scratching an itch that only gets worse the more you scratch it. Seneca, the great Roman Stoic, offered a rather extreme prescription for this modern illness. He said that we should get used to being poor. I actually really like what he said, because it forces us to interrogate our wishes and desires. Let's say tomorrow the economy crashes. Your bank account is wiped out, and you no longer have the money to buy those fancy things. Would you still be happy? Or would your entire identity collapse because you can no longer wear a specific brand of shoes? Seneca advised his incredibly wealthy friends to practice poverty. He wrote, Set aside a certain number of days, during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, "Is this the condition that I feared?" It's an inoculation. By voluntarily stripping away the luxury, you realize that the luxury isn't what's keeping you alive. You survive the worst-case scenario. You learn that your happiness does not require a premium subscription. I was watching the animated series Carol and the End of the World recently, and honestly, I highly recommend you stop what you are doing, put down the phone, and go watch this show instead. It really made me think about what our actual wishes are. In the show, an apocalypse is looming. A mysterious planet is hurtling towards Earth, and extinction is guaranteed in a matter of months. So, what happens? Society drops its masks. People stop going to their meaningless jobs. They start doing whatever they actually want to do. And it turns out, when the world is ending and the audience is guaranteed to die, nobody cares about your designer clothes. When the audience is removed from the equation, what is left of you? Let's say it really is the end of the world. Do you really want that Gucci belt? Is a piece of high-end leather going to comfort you as the meteor strikes? Spoiler alert, it won't. We spend so much of our brief, fragile lives accumulating props for a stage play that no one is really watching. Everyone in the audience is too busy worrying about their own props to look at yours. So, what is the cure? The cure is to stop living for the phantom audience. Epictetus, another Stoic who actually was a slave and knew a thing or two about having nothing, said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." If no one could see you, who would you be? What would you read? What would you wear? Where would you walk? Find those things. The things you do when the doors are closed, the cameras are off, and the Wi-Fi is disconnected. Invest in the life you actually live, not the one you broadcast. Because at the end of the day, the only person whose head you actually have to live inside is your own. You might as well furnish it with things you actually like.